Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Suburban Pathfinder. As I mentioned in my last video, I have been squandering a lot of really prime riding time. It's been dry, it's been warm, and my bike has been more or less sitting because I need to take it into the dealership to get the recall work done on the fuel pump, and I also need a new safety inspection. So I am bound and determined to get that work done this week, and that means that before I take it out of the shop and get it on the road to take it over to the dealership, I want to do one more thing. Some of you who follow my channel may have seen I made a whole bunch of upgrades to my KLR650 over the course of the winter, but there's one glaring exception, and that has been that I still have this thin, chintzy plastic skid plate on the bottom of the bike. It's mostly a splash guard, mud guard, gravel guard, something just to keep small stones from chipping your engine case and getting mud splattered all over your engine case. But it's not going to do anything if you come down on a serious rock or a log, if you misjudge a hump and end up grinding on the bottom. And of course, most of you probably also know the drain plug on these bikes is especially susceptible to damage when you come down on the frame, because it actually projects down below the frame a little bit. Now, they make low-profile drain plugs, which I actually have and I will be installing in the next time I do an oil change on the bike. But that's a particularly easy way to kill your bike, or have to end up basically doing an entire engine rebuild. So I bought this skid plate, and this one is not a chintzy plastic thing. This is from Enduro Engineering. I don't know where all they sell them. I bought mine through Amazon, and I mostly, because I'm a cheapskate, remember the cheapest thing on a KLR650 is the rider. But I am a cheapskate, and this is by far, when it comes to decently reviewed products, this is by far the least expensive skid plate you can get. And it really seems very, very nice. It's made from 6061 T6 aluminum, I believe. Just raw aluminum. It's not anodized or anything, but this is good, hard aluminum. It looks to be about, wow, that's probably more than 1/4 inch thick. I would say that's probably 3/8 aluminum. And it's got a couple of nice features. It's got this housing, this additional housing welded onto the bottom. Why don't I take it out of the bag so we can get a better look at it. It has this extra housing welded onto the bottom. Now, I'm not a professional welder, but I do work in a fabricating shop. I do a little bit of welding. I work around some guys who are very talented welders, and the welding on this is really very, very nice. I mean, it's not the fanciest welding I've ever seen, but it's certainly burnt in well, and it's very, it seems to be very, very substantial. So we've got this little housing that will actually project down below the bottom of the skid plate to protect that drain plug, even if you have the original Kawasaki plug. And of course, even once you put the low profile drain plug in there, it's nice to have this bit of protection. And you can see there's an access port here. I'm going to go ahead and take the old skid plate off and just lay them out here on the floor side by side, so you can see how much more protection you get out of this, because in addition to being much more substantial, it actually comes back quite a bit further. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. We'll take a look at this side by side on the floor, and then I'm going to go ahead and install this. I'm not actually going to do an installation video because I know I have a tendency to make videos that are very, very long. And if you have taken off the plastic skid plate to do an oil change or something like that, you know how the plate comes off and how it goes back on. There's 4 bolt holes on this, just as there are 4 bolt holes in the plastic cover. it's basically the same procedure. You just have a much heavier duty product here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one off, and we'll take a look at them on the floor. So basically, this is what I wanted to show you. Not only is the actual skid plate from Enduro Engineering made out of much more substantial material, which will actually protect your engine case and your oil pan from skids and bumps and knocks and hopefully not too serious crashes, but it should really be able to handle a lot of off-road abuse. And the plastic, essentially mud guard that the bike comes with, which really can't protect the engine from much. You can see, I washed it up for the benefit of this video after I took it off, just rinsed most of the mud off. But as you can see, there's like a sandblasted line down the middle of this guard where the stones were flying directly off the tire and basically sort of sandblasting a line there. That's about the most you could hope for from this factory skid plate. This will basically cover the front of your engine case, the lower front of your engine case, a bit of the frame. Seriously, is this water cooler going to kick on every 5 minutes? I'm sorry about the noise. I can't film this again. So it'll protect your water pump a little bit, a couple other things, but it's really just there for chips and splatter. But the most important thing to note here is that it only comes back to about the end of the engine case. The oil pan, the drain plug, and everything are completely uncovered by this plastic factory skid plate. Whereas this one comes back and completely covers the oil pan. And again, it's got this welded, raised up housing to protect that drain plug. So this is going to be a much, much better unit. Let's go ahead and put it on. I'm not going to show you once again because it's a fairly straightforward process. I didn't point out in my intro, but there is some hardware here, and there's a booklet with some instructions on how to go about putting this on. So I'm just going to do that, and we'll come back and take a look at it when it's all on there. There's a roll of foam, which I think is to go on your frame to insulate, I guess, from noise. But most people said that they don't use this foam. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mount this up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it's 2 days later. No, I didn't run into 2 days worth of problems with this project. I just ran out of time the other evening, and I only got around to finishing installation of the new skid plate tonight. Installation was fairly simple. There was really no reason to film it. If you can take the factory OEM plastic plate, I hesitate to describe this as a skid plate. If you can take this off and put it back on, well, then you can install the new skid plate. Couple of things I do want to point out. First of all, when I showed the two plates side by side, I said that the new plate was going to use the same 4 mounting points. And that is true. It does use all 4 of these mounting points. But there are 2 additional points, because the skid plate is longer, there are 2 additional holes further back, I would say about 4 to 6 inches back. You can go back in the video and look at it when it was laying on the ground. That accommodates 2 slightly larger bolts that go into the mounting holes, I think for the lower engine guards on the Adventure model. Of course, I don't have the lower engine guards. And if you don't have the lower engine guards, this plate does come with aluminum spacers that fit in there. It's very straightforward. One thing I would keep an eye out for, though, and I've even seen forum posts regarding this with the factory plate. There are 2 breather hoses that come down and snake underneath the frame, in between the frame and the skid plate. One comes down off the left-hand side. The other one, I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. I think one of them's for the gas tank to vent gas fumes, and the other one is most likely a breather for the battery. When the charging system is charging the battery, one of the byproducts of that charging process is the production of hydrogen gas. So it's probably, the other line is probably venting hydrogen out the back. Anyway, I didn't have any problems with them, with the factory skid plate mounted, although I have read about it. But apparently you can get one of those hoses pinched in between even the factory plate and the bottom of the engine case. Again, I never had a problem with that, but when I was mounting this skid plate, I had a hell of a time with the breather hose that comes down the right side of the bike. No matter what I did, every time I tried to put the plate on, it would snake its way and get pinched between the oil pan and the skid plate. Now, I didn't have any problem with the left-hand hose. I only had a problem with the right-hand hose. What I eventually ended up doing was just pulling the whole hose out the right-hand side of the bike, mounting up the plate, and then very carefully snaking it back through so that it wouldn't be pinched. Apparently, if you pinch the breather from the gas tank, that's one of the things that will contribute to your gas tank spitting gas and squealing at you as it's releasing gasoline vapors on hot days when the sun's beating down on your tank. So just be aware of that. Not a big deal. It only afterwards it occurred to me it might have been smart to just put some zip ties along the frame, hold the breather in place, and then mount the plate. But you do want to be careful with that because they are fairly soft rubber hoses, and I think you could squeeze them off even with some zip ties. So if you do that route, make sure you leave your zip ties a little bit loose. Anyway, I think it looks great. As I said, it has 6 mounting points instead of the 4 on the factory plate. And so not only is the new skid plate made of much more durable, robust material than this plastic mud guard that comes on the bike, but you've got 2 extra mounting points, and I think that's going to obviously make for a much stronger attachment method. I think it looks great. You probably can't see it from this angle, but I'm sure I've probably already spliced in some B-roll so you can see what it looks like. I think it's a great addition to the bike. Should really protect the frame, the engine case, and most importantly, especially on the KLR650, the oil pan and the drain plug. So I think that's about all the upgrades that I am doing to the bike. So now it's time to get out on the road, get this thing inspected, get the recall work done on it, and start doing some moto vlogging. When I do that, I hope to see each of you here then. Later, guys.